Good evening and welcome. This is Spotlight Africa, brought to you by Spectrum Television and Planet Radio, live from Uyo, the capital city of Akwa Ibom State, Nigeria. I am Uyai Aniekan. Today on Spotlight Africa, ECOWAS court fixes December 7th for ruling on legality of sanctions against Niger. Andry Rajoelina set to retain Madagascar presidency. Liberia's president-elect lauds Weah for accepting defeat. South Africa Parliament suspends Malema, other members of parliament, for a month. Plus, hunger kills 50 people in Ethiopia amid drought. These stories are all just ahead on Spotlight Africa. To stay with us. Thanks for joining us. First on Spotlight Africa, the ECOWAS Court of Justice will on December 7, 2023, deliver its ruling on interim measures in a case between the state of Niger and 7 others, and the authority of heads of state and government of ECOWAS and 2 others. The court fixed the date after hearing both parties during its sitting held on Monday, November 21, 2023, at its sit in Abuja. At the hearing, the applicants, represented by their lawyers, Mokela Yayi and 5 others, argued that the sanctions imposed by the authority of heads of state and government of ECOWAS have adverse effect on the Nigerian people, including shortage of food, medicine and electricity due to the closure of borders and cut off of electricity supplied by Nigeria. They asked the court for interim court orders that will compel the authority of heads of state and government to immediately suspend the sanctions. They said that the respondents overreacted by imposing the sanctions, which were not successive, and that Niger was treated unequally and unfairly compared to the other 3 member states, Mali, Burkina Faso and Guinea, that also experienced coup d'etat in recent years. In another development, Madagascar's incumbent president Andry Rajoelina appears set to secure another term as he continues his commanding lead in the presidential election, with votes from more than 3/4 of polling stations counted. Rajoelina currently leads with 59.7% of the vote, far ahead of his closest opponent, ex-president Marc Ravalomanana, at 13.2%, and Steiny Radiner Solko at 12.5%. Meanwhile, Madagascar's electoral body, Seni, has so far tallied votes from 21,000 out of 27,000 polling stations and is expected to announce the full results on Saturday. The tallied voting stations recorded a voter turnout of just 45%, considered to be one of the lowest voter turnouts in the island's country's election history. Away from that, in his first address to the nation since his victory in runoff elections, Liberia's president-elect Joseph Boakai has lauded Judge Weah for accepting defeat after 1 term in office. Recall that a former Vice President Boakai won a runoff election after securing 50.64% of the votes to Weah's 49.36%. Boakai takes office in January when Weah steps down. The president-elect said he would form a transitional team to work with the Weah government to ensure a smooth handover of power. In a speech delivered from his private office in the capital, Monrovia, Boakai thanked Liberians for electing him. Meanwhile, a US-based Liberian pilot, Abner Loney, is due to arrive back in the country of his birth after becoming the first black person to complete a solo transatlantic flight in a single-engine aircraft. A 1976 Beechcraft Sundowner, Loney embarked on his journey from Maryland in the United States and then crossed the North Atlantic from Canada to Greenland, Iceland, the Faroe Islands, the United Kingdom, France, and Spain. He reached the African continent in Morocco and has now safely landed in Dakar, Senegal. In a motivational statement, Loney said he dreamt not only of being a pilot but a source of inspiration. In a separate development, former Johannesburg Mayor Tafalo Ahmad has stirred controversy after he posted a photo of himself brandishing a rifle in support of Palestinian group Hamas. Some ex-users say that the photo, along with the language used in the caption, promote hate and incite violence. Meanwhile, other users on the platform have defended Ahmad's message, but said that the photo of the gun was unnecessary. Elsewhere, South Sudan's People Defense Forces SSPDF has been accused of attacking civilians in the Sunday morning ambush that left 40 people dead in the disputed area of Abyei. The leader of the 9 chiefdoms in Abyei, Sultan Bulabek, told newsmen that soldiers carried out a coordinated attack in several villages alongside armed youth from the Twik County of Werrap State. He claimed that the attack was meant to push the Ngok community out of their homes. A resident who also spoke to newsmen said his cousin was killed in the attack, adding that they could not retrieve the body from the scene because of heavy artillery. The commander of SSPDF's 3rd Division, Major General Akwe Ajo, denied the allegations, saying the purpose of the force was to protect people between Twik and Abyei. He added that youth from Abyei were behind the attack on a military base that killed 7 soldiers and civilians, including children, on the 13th of November. A joint statement by the embassies of Norway, the United Kingdom, and the United States urged South Sudan to pull out its troops from Abyei to prevent further escalation of the violence. South African opposition leader Julius Malema and 5 other members of parliament from his Economic Freedom Fighters EFF party were on Wednesday punished with a 1-month suspension without pay from parliament. The parliament's Power and Privileges Committee found them guilty of contempt of parliament for storming the stage during President Cyril Ramaphosa's State of the Nation address in February. The Speaker then suspended proceedings as security removed Malema and the other members of Parliament from the hall. The committee added that each member must also make an apology in person in the House to the President, the Speaker, and the people of South Africa for disrupting the President's address and putting the country in a bad light. The suspension of the 6 members of Parliament will run during the whole month of February next year, meaning that Malema and the other 5 members of Parliament will be blocked from attending the President's next State of the Nation address, which is due in that month. On Monday, the EFF members of Parliament refused to participate in the hearings against them after the committee declined their request for postponement. Malema also protested against the appointment of Advocate Anton Kars as the initiator in the hearing. Moving away from that, Ugandan health authorities are currently investigating an unidentified disease outbreak that has reportedly killed at least 12 people in a span of 2 weeks in Kwaiteria district in the central region. The authorities said affected patients had rashes on the skin, which kept whitening before dying in a matter of days. Some had swollen limbs. Reports say Uganda's Ministry of Health has collected fresh skin samples from one of the patients who died at a local general hospital last week. Its findings are yet to be shared with the public. In another development, Mali's military government has signed an agreement that includes a gold refinery project in the Malian capital, Bamako. The deal involves building the refinery to process 200 tons of gold annually. Reports say it is valid for 4 years and does not specify the timeline for the construction. Gold is Mali's leading export product by value and one of its largest contributors to economic growth, according to the country's mining ministry. The project will allow Mali to control all gold production in the country and correctly apply all taxes and duties, according to Finance Minister Alseni Sano. Mali has strengthened its relations with Russia in recent years following the military coup in 2021 and the withdrawal of French forces from the country a year later. In the meantime, Kenya's Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua has said that the national government will not provide funds for flood response efforts as the country battles one of its worst floods in recent years. The announcement comes after the governor of Mombasa, one of the counties most impacted by the ongoing floods, disputed Gachagua's earlier claim that the government had sent counties 10 billion Kenyan shillings for flood response. Recall that last week, flash floods killed at least 13 people in Mombasa and 3 neighboring counties. More than 50 people have died in Ethiopia's northern Tigray and Amhara regions due to drought-induced hunger. According to Tigray's Disaster Risk Management Office, 46 displaced people died after having already left their homes because of drought. The deaths occurred in a town called Yechila, the office's head Gebreyaha said. In the neighboring Amhara area of Waghemra, at least 6 people and 4,000 cattle have died because of food shortages prompted by drought. Recall that for more than 5 months, the United States and the United Nations aid Ethiopia with allegations of massive theft. This exacerbated the humanitarian crisis in the country, where war and extreme weather events had left millions dependent on aid. While parts of northern Ethiopia are facing a severe drought, the country's southern and eastern regions are expected to be hit by unusually heavy rains. According to the United Nations, more than 40 people have died in recent weeks due to floods and landslides, many of whom are in the eastern Somali region. Elsewhere, the Ethiopian government says the latest round of peace talks with the rebel group Oromo Liberation Army Ola has failed to end with an agreement. One of the government's negotiators, Redwan Hussein, blamed the Ola, accusing it of an obstructive approach and making unrealistic demands. The government regrets this unfortunate turn of events, Redwan said on X. In response, Ola said the Ethiopian government was only interested in co-opting it rather than beginning to address the fundamental problems that underlie the country's seemingly insurmountable security and political challenges. Historic moments as Cameroon gets new malaria vaccine. Stay tuned for details of this and more after this time out.
Christmas season is here again. Are you aware that making your business or products visible on a television space gives your brand a wider visibility and patronage? In the spirit of the season, Spectrum Television is offering a whopping 25% discount on all services. Advertise your products and services while this offer lasts from 1st December 2023 to January 31st, 2024. We are a television with a passion to take your business and services on a satisfactory lane. You do not want to miss this opportunity. For more inquiries, visit our city office at number 2 Taft Plaza Close off Akaitinen Road, Uyo, Akwa Ibom State, or call the following numbers on your screen. Spectrum TV, broadening your horizon.
Thanks for staying tuned, and now to the rest of the news stories on Spotlight Africa. The United Nations representative in South Sudan, Nicholas Haysom, has said at least 75 people have died in the past 2 weeks due to violence between rival communities in the disputed area of Abyei on the border between Sudan and South Sudan. He called on the government to investigate the attacks and reduce tension. He also urged community leaders not to use violence as a solution. There have been ongoing clashes between the Ngok and Twik communities over resources in Abyei. Earlier this week, the South Sudan Army was accused by a local leader of coordinating attacks with rival armed youth allegations the military denies. Away from that, the army in the Democratic Republic of Congo says it will punish any soldier in contact with a largely Hutu rebel group linked to the 1994 Rwandan genocide. The army said anyone regardless of rank who broke the ban on dealing with the FDLR militia would be arrested. The announcement follows pressure from the United States on both Congo and Rwanda to lessen tension between them. Rwanda is widely believed to have set up the Tutsi-led M23 rebel group to counter the FDLR Rwandan authorities, already denying allegations of supporting the group. In a ceremony held at a mortuary in Petah Tikva, Israel, in commemoration of the life of Clemens Metwa, a Tanzanian student who was taken hostage in the Hamas attack on Israel. The ceremony was attended by representatives from the Tanzania Foreign Embassy, from Israel Foreign Ministry, and fellow students on the academic program that Clemens was completing. A fellow student, Ezekiel Kituku, who had been living in Ntega on Kibbutz near Oz, told newsmen it has been an incredibly painful time. In Nigeria, 25 people have died in Niger State after the truck they were traveling in lost control and crashed on a busy expressway. The truck, which was headed to the economic hub of Lagos from Sokoto State, was speeding and overloaded with passengers and cargo, the Federal Road Safety Agency reported yesterday. Some of the more than 200 passengers who survived the accident sustained serious injuries. The accident happened on Tuesday night but was confirmed by authorities on Wednesday. President Bola Tinubu on Wednesday described the accident as a harrowing tragedy and directed emergency response agencies to ensure the injured survivors receive necessary treatment. Niger State Governor Mohammed Bago also issued a directive against the use of trucks and other haulage vehicles to carry passengers. Meanwhile, Congo-Brazzaville has been observing a day of mourning after 31 people died in a stampede during an army recruitment drive at a stadium in the capital on Monday night. The government ordered that flags fly at half-mast and drinking places shut as a mark of respect for the victims. The government initially announced that 37 people had died in the stampede, but later revised the figure to 31. Reports say about 145 people were injured, with 15 still in hospital. Meanwhile, an investigation is underway into the cause of the stampede. Roman Catholic bishops in Zimbabwe have condemned a resurgence of political violence linked to a series of planned by-elections. In a pastoral letter, the bishops said the polls had been wantonly called. They said it seemed the voices of voters could be easily ignored. The opposition Citizens Coalition for Change, CCC, has complained that the recall elections are part of a campaign by the ruling ZANU-PF party to secure a two-thirds majority in parliament. It fell short of the target during the general election in August. In another development, Cameroon has received more than 330,000 doses of a new malaria vaccine, the first to be approved by the World Health Organization (WHO). Health Minister Maunda Machili described it as a historic moment. Kenya, Ghana and Malawi have already started distributing the RTS vaccine, which has to be administered in 4 doses. Over the next few weeks, deliveries are expected in Burkina Faso, Liberia, Niger and Sierra Leone. Africa accounts for the vast majority of malaria cases worldwide. Reported the disease kills more than 600,000 people globally each year, most of them children. Moving away from that, 9 people were killed by gunmen who raided a weekly market in Benyam town in the west of Cameroon. The attack on the town, which is located in the French-speaking area of Bambutos, is suspected to have been carried out by separatist fighters who want to establish an independent state in the neighboring English-speaking region. Reports say the separatist conflict has festered since 2017, with Cameroon's minority English-speaking community complaining that they have been marginalized by the government, dominated by a French-speaking majority. Meanwhile, more than 6,000 people have died in the conflict and close to 1 million others displaced. A Ghanaian member of parliament has apologized to English footballer Harry Maguire for comparing him with the country's vice president, describing them as poor performers. The member of parliament had last year criticized Vice President Muhammadu Bawumia for Ghana's poor economic performance and likened him to what he said was Maguire's poor performance as a player for scoring own goals. But on Tuesday, the member of parliament Isaac Adongo said the Manchester United defender had since turned around his fortunes. In a related development, Manchester United footballer Harry Maguire has accepted the apology of a Ghanaian member of parliament who ridiculed him last year. Isaac Adongo had caused laughter in parliament last year when he described Maguire as the biggest threat at the centre of the Manchester United defence. The opposition member of parliament publicly apologised on Tuesday, admitting the defender was now a transformational footballer, now scoring goals for Manchester United. Responding to the apology, Maguire wrote on X, "Member of Parliament Isaac Adongo apology accepted. See you at Old Trafford soon." Adongo had compared Maguire's performance to that of Ghana's Vice President Muhammadu Bawumia, whom he continues to criticize for the poor management of the country's economy. And that's all we have for you today on Spotlight Africa, bringing you news all around the continent. I beg your pardon. This has been brought to you by Spectrum Television and Planet Radio. Do well to follow us across all social media platforms, all of which you can find on our website, SpectrumTv Live. You can also do well to follow us on planetradio.ng. My name is Uyai Anek, and thanks for being a part of this, and do enjoy the rest of your evening.